Hello everybody and welcome back to F1 23 with me, Dan, and the Slothz Tech team. Looks as though our development issue has paid off there, and we managed to get some morale for the reliability department, even though we don't even use them at the moment. So we'll continue on towards the next season break. Yes, for some reason there is another one, and pick up another chassis upgrade there. It's a sprint race today here in Qatar, and the first time that I've ever done this race, so this should be an exciting one, and it's extra long as well. Pick up that decision there, just giving our second driver some boosts, and continue onwards towards this season break on the 18th of September. I wonder how long this one will last for. And on we go to the 21st of September, so 3 days. Continuing on then, chassis upgrades coming through and some more cash. We're going to go down and build the build time upgrade for the power unit department and continue onwards. We don't get our chassis upgrade though, unfortunately, so it's back into R&D to grab that weight reduction upgrade. We are still the worst chassis on the grid, yet somehow doing so well. Anyway, on to R&D. We're going to pick up this Jag reduction upgrade for absolutely no reason. And for anyone wondering, this is where we sit in the performance graph right now. So we're up in the top half with Red Bull, Ferrari, Aston Martin and Mercedes. But McLaren, Alpine, Haas, Williams, Alfa Romeo and Alfa Tauri have all made massive leaps recently, and they have begun catching up. Williams kind of flatlined actually after I think Belgium there, but the rest of the teams all improving slowly but surely. We have to be careful though, because regulation changes are coming up next season. We don't know which ones yet, but we know that it's going to be multiple departments. So it's time to invest in our resource points here in practice. As I mentioned, it's a sprint weekend, so it's just 2 practice sessions, which is going to make things all the more difficult. First session out the way then, qualifying completed, and now it's time to try and grab as much as we can before we finish getting that rear downforce upgrade, because we want to get both of the front and rear downforce upgrades at the same time if possible. That will be the next thing on the shopping list in the R&D department, and then just see what we can do here. Let's try and get this 75 points. We do, and then we got 11 minutes to try and spend somewhere. But where is the question? Where indeed? We're going to go with fuel efficiency, and we do get that. So then, here we go for the Qatarian Grand Prix, or Qatar Grand Prix. I'm not actually sure, to be quite honest with you. I've never been onto this circuit before, except in a live stream which I did a few weeks ago, where I had a very nice evening 1v1 racing with somebody around this circuit. And also Las Vegas. Not sure where the track map went, but don't forget to like and subscribe. Anyway, onto the starting grid for the sprint. It's Charles Leclerc alongside Max Verstappen, only by a little bit though, on the front row there, just 0.04 of a second. They're followed by George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez, Fernando Alonso, Lando Norris, Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. We make up P11 alongside Lance Stroll, Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen, Joe Guanyu, Alex Albon, Oscar Piastri and Valtteri Bottas, Jack Doohan, Yuki Tsunoda, and on the back row it's Nick De Vries and Logan Sargent, just returning to a bit of normality there, I suppose. So without further ado then, we go down to the track, and for the first time in what seems like forever, we actually get a different car showing up on this kind of introductory video, and immediately cut away to the grandstands for seemingly no reason at all. Not sure what's going on there with the intro for this race, but all I can say is that Codemasters clearly put a lot of effort into it. Right then, as we glitch our way down to the starting lights, and the lights go absolutely apeshit behind us, it's time to get underway here for the first time in Qatar, and for a sprint race no less. Coming down towards turn 1, it's actually looking quite nice down there as we get sandwiched in between multiple cars, and Lando Norris goes up the inside as we try and fight our way past the Haas Nico Hülkenberg, who slips up the inside, and we just don't have enough to try and get past the Haas there. continuing on through towards whichever corner this is. And we're now under attack from his teammate, Kevin Magnussen, as we continue on around this circuit. Still trying to learn the layout a little bit as well. And a little bit like Saudi Arabia, there's quite a lot of corners considering that this circuit is built for bikes, and that's understandable. As we continue on then through, this is the faster of the hairpins, and it gives us a nice sweeping corner to exit out up towards the reverse to Istanbul section, as I like to call it. Flat out through here in 7th gear. If you don't have a Haas in front of you, that's the second corner flat out, followed by one change down to 6th, up to 7th, back to 6th again for the penultimate corner, and then a hairpin onto the main straight. Round the outside of the Haas we go. As you saw, we nearly rear-ended him just now. It's clearly a weakness of the AI at this circuit. And we continue on, lap 4. So we've sat behind Lando Norris for quite some time now. You can see the power unit lights that were on during the last race in Monza have just turned a darker shade of red by the time we get to this sprint race. And it's not causing us a problem here as we go around the outside of Lando Norris into the Istanbul section. Getting before the second corner as well, and we slot into P9. 1 place away from scoring points in the sprint race, though, as only the top 8 will score here. Let's go on board with Norris. Sees the front wing, slipping up the inside, and we slide it past him. And then continue on through this section of track. Very pleasing part of the circuit as well, I might add, given the likeness to the Turkish Grand Prix. Following Ocon, can we do the same here then, as we flip through the first part, then the second part, and then change down for the third? We're going to close up right behind him now. The AI really don't like that part of the track, and could rear-end him here as well, as we just go past the back of his diffuser there. Going to try and get the cut back here, but he's managed to keep a solid line through the final corner. DRS is open for the pair of us, and we go to the right-hand side now. We're running out of ERS, so we have to back out of it slightly, just dribble it into the car, and Esteban Ocon is able to survive, as our power unit problems cause us a few more issues here in Qatar. Through the corners, though, absolutely no issues at all as we tailgate him like a professional BMW driver. Unfortunately, though, as we come to the straight again, we slide out of the final corner. DRS is open. He also gets the DRS from the struggling Alonso up ahead, who's unable to get close enough to Perez, Hamilton and Sainz. And once again, we have to settle for P9 at the end of the straight, but we do have the advantage through the corners. We have the strongest aero package of any team on the grid, and it's really showing here as we fight our way through the corners. Esteban Ocon will be trying to hold his nerve here, watching the fighting going on ahead as Hamilton now moves up a place. Maybe Carlos Sainz that actually I might have spotted earlier, unless he's been falling down the order. And now we come on to this twisty section at the top of the circuit with the little kink here, which if you're feeling ballsy, you might be able to do flat out with a better car than the one we're using here today. And up to the Istanbul section we go, following right up behind the Alpine now. Into the first part of the corner we go, into the second, run wide all over the circuit there as we struggle with the tyre wear, which has been particularly challenging here at this circuit. Sliding again in the penultimate corner, pushing this car beyond its limits as we come around the final corner, and it's going to be a drag race down to the finish line, but unfortunately Esteban Ocon is going to get that DRS once again and is more than capable of holding us off with that power unit problem that we're having. So it's P9 for us, pointless after all of that fighting, all of that advantage on display, ruined by an engine which is incapable of deploying its full power. Here are the race results then for the weekend so far. Charles Leclerc at the top, followed by George Russell and Max Verstappen. And now it's time for us to get on with the main event in the race. Right then, it's time for the main event here in Qatar. And I have some good news because I've been modifying the power unit components that we're using between the sprint race and this one. And we've switched out the internal combustion engine, which was on its knees, for our final component, and also added in a few extra pieces as well, which haven't had as much usage so far this season. Anyway, don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell so you know when all these new races are uploaded. We got one more new track coming later this season, and that will be the Las Vegas Grand Prix. That should be interesting indeed. Onto the starting grid, and it's Charles Leclerc, this time joined by George Russell on the front row. He was able to fight his way up past Verstappen and Perez during the sprint race. Behind them, we have Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon, and to round out the top 10, it's Radiant Slothz and Lando Norris, followed by Nico Hulkenberg, Pierre Gasly, Kevin Magnussen, Lance Stroll, Oscar Piastri, Zhou Guanyu, Jack Doohan, Alex Albon, Yuki Tsunoda and Logan Sargent, and finally it's Nick De Vries and Valtteri Bottas. So as we go down to the starting grid then, and we'll see how we can do with the new power unit here in Qatar. Previous results there for Charles Leclerc, no points in Italy, but the previous two before that, a P2 with a fastest lap and a race win. And there's Alex Albon, a podium winner this season. Right then, it's time to get underway here in Qatar for the second time. Can we improve from P9 with a slightly better engine? We're already away, much faster than Fernando Alonso there, as we sneak up the right-hand side of him. And now we've got Esteban Ocon challenging us with Max Verstappen into turn 1. Verstappen on the hard tyre, a sitting duck, and we get past Esteban Ocon as well. Completely destroy the competition there through the first couple of corners. Verstappen dropped all the way back to P9, it looks like. Maybe even go a little bit further, considering that he started on the front row in the sprint. This is a disaster for him. Let's look at this start. Absolutely destroying Fernando Alonso, who also started on the soft tyre. There's Verstappen, a sitting duck into turn 1 on those hard tyres. And looking ahead, Carlos Sainz is another. He decided to go with the hards. We dispatched Esteban Ocon much faster than we were able to earlier on in the sprint. And here's another look at Verstappen, watching his entire race disappear. We shoot by, and then it's a side-by-side battle through the opening corners with Fernando Alonso. Alonso just about hanging on there. Verstappen somehow keeping his front wheel alongside Alonso, even through the double right-hander, and eventually he has to give up the place. So we rejoined on lap 2 then. Around the Istanbul section we go. Carlos Sainz will be dropping back from the leaders now, as he is still running the hard tyre, and we can finally begin to open up the throttle here and see what potential this power unit has to offer. Coming around the final corner, we get a great traction out of the final corner, nearly completely flipped Carlos Sainz over the top of our car, but it wasn't necessary. We've started to drag race him down the pit straight, but there'll be no competition here into the corner. He is absolutely going to end up behind us there with those hards on. And that puts us up into P5 as we follow with the helicopter cam around the circuit. We can see that just about see that the flap was open there as we chase down Lewis Hamilton. And look how much we're closing up on him in the corners. Up ahead, it looks as though George Russell lost his front row position to Charles Leclerc, and Sergio Perez, who started 4th, has somehow managed to make his way up into 1st right now. Incredible stuff from him. Coming into the slower of the two hairpins on the circuit then, and we'll approach the kink in just a moment after we get round here. Lewis Hamilton also running the soft tyre, but the AI not running new power units, and also not having the best aero the grid has to offer right now. Only Red Bull seem to come close to us. So we follow it through the Istanbul section then. First of the corners, second of the corners. We close up just a little bit into the 3rd corner. Really beginning to get close to the back of the Mercedes now. Coming into the penultimate corner, having to take a wider line there just to stop ourselves from having an accident. And through the final corner, to finish off. And we run a little bit wide there, get the DRS, and we come alongside Lewis Hamilton down the pit straight. George Russell and now attempted the retake P2 as we drop Hamilton off at the outside of turn 1 and slot in behind Charles Leclerc in P4. And Charles Leclerc will be next, of course, as we rejoin a similar section again into the kink that we go into the fast hairpin. I imagine this circuit would be particularly fun on the bike, but it's even better in a Formula 1 car. You can see the tyre wear's not looking too good, but right now we're absolutely dominating this race through the corners. And as we come down towards the penultimate corner, we can really use the car to its full advantage there. Just absolutely throw it through that left-hander at full speed. And Charles Leclerc, little mistake on exit of the penultimate corner. He has the DRS on Leclerc, but the Ferrari power unit is not going to be able to defend from us, as well as we also have the best power unit on the grid. And he will be ditched well and truly behind us. And next up, we got George Russell. This was Charles Leclerc through the final corner. Yep, touch of gas there, which started to spin, rotate the rears, and just cost him as we come onto the straight. And then we go slipping by just off to the right of his screen, drawing alongside him. And that outside line through turn 1, just not ideal for Charles Leclerc. This was Pierre Gasly breaking down for the second race in a row. Coming around the final corner, and he will stop somewhere on the pit straight, which seems like a really inconvenient place to park his car. And he's cleared, meaning that the yellow flags have now disappeared, and George Russell goes for a move on Perez. Going for the lead now. Perez hangs on up the inside, but Russell manages to plant it round the outside. And Sergio Perez will now come under attack from us. And you saw how well we were doing through the corners earlier on. Red Bull are, though, the only team which really has an aero department that could challenge ours. Through the first double right-hander we go. Up the inside of a slower hairpin, harder braking zone. Here we can really take advantage of that and accelerate up towards the, well, this kind of corner. Followed by the kink. We're still alongside Sergio Perez, but as we come into the kink, we've managed to take the position away. And that is George Russell just over a second ahead of us. But with the DRS zone fast approaching and some corners which we have to our advantage, it's not looking good for Russell. This was Sergio Perez trying his best to defend from us. Hangs on as long as he can there, really forces us to the outside and eventually just backs out of it through the kink. Nobody really in a position to stop us right now as we approach the back of George Russell. Looking down the order, we've got Hamilton and Leclerc are at the back of the field as they've come in for an undercut. So we will have to respond to them on this lap. Will Russell come in? No, he will not. Never been into the pit lane here before, so I had no idea where I was going. Just had to follow this round. And in we go then. Looks like Carlos Sainz will be following us in, as is Verstappen, who is probably feeling like he's wasted his time on the hard tyre at this point. And in we go into the pit box. Will we have any issues today? Little slow on the front right, but otherwise not too bad, and we're away. Sitting in P9 at the minute, but where are Leclerc and Hamilton? There they are on circuit, and they've actually done it. They've pulled off the undercut, and they're a little bit ahead of us right now as we come through turn 1, but we'll stay on board because they are trapped behind the AlphaTauri, I think, of De Vries and Logan Sargent, who will not be going particularly fast, either of them. And we'll see how much of this 1.7 second lead we can close up with these fresh mediums. We've already took 3 temps out of them through the hairpin, another 2 temps there. We're now within a second. This isn't looking good for Lewis Hamilton or Charles Leclerc. As we come round towards the faster hairpin into the kink. And we're right up behind Hamilton now. Neither Hamilton or Leclerc going for any kind of moves here on Logan Sargent or each other. And as we come up to Istanbul section, we're going to be closing right up to the back of Hamilton. Now look how close you get through the second part of the corner, through the third part of the corner, having to brake excessively to try and stop ourselves crashing into the back of him. And it's De Vries and Sargent off into the pit lane, and into the final corner we go. It's going to be a chase down towards turn 1. Charles Leclerc will also have DRS. We're already going to the outside of Lewis Hamilton here, but Hamilton switches on the afterburners and somehow finds even more speed, but he's not able to get past Charles Leclerc as we come into turn 1, and he locks up the front and moves off to the edge of the circuit. We touch him there as we try to slip up the inside. Looks like no damage was sustained. That would have been catastrophic for us. This was on board with Hamilton. Just not able to find a way past there on the artificial grass, and moves to the inside only to lock up his wheel and nearly cause a bit of an accident with us. Not ideal. And here we go on lap 12 then. The inevitable is finally about to happen. Charles Leclerc will fight as much as he can, but look how close we are to the back of Charles Leclerc through here. The 2022 regulations really doing their part to allow us to follow closely. And as we come round the final corner, we've still got several laps to go. The DRS is open, and past we go. And at this point, it was questionable at this stage. Had I accidentally lowered the difficulty to something below 100, having gone back after the race to have a look, no, I hadn't. And at this stage here, we're about 6 seconds ahead of Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez. So the question remains, is this an anomaly because we haven't seen these cars drive around the 2020, well, drive around the Qatar circuit yet? Is that the problem? Maybe. We certainly, I think the AI certainly need to have some work done here, because if this was level 100 AI and we're driving the 5th best car, yes, we have the best power unit, pretty much, and are tied with Red Bull for the best aero, but I really don't think that we should have been this far ahead. It could just be an AI skill issue. The other thing to consider, we have put a brand new internal combustion engine in the car, so I would imagine that our power output has been at the best it's been for quite some time. Potentially could be another reason why it's been so easy for us. I mean, in the background, you can't even see the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. He's so far back at this point, as we did try to go for fastest lap on lap 19. It didn't work, but we tried it anyway. And we're going to come round the final corner now, dominating this race. And unfortunately, Max Verstappen is only P6, which means we're going to close up to him in the championship again. Not what we want. There is the gap to the competitors, and we'll cross the line into the gravel, and that was the Qatar Grand Prix. Complete domination. In fact, in fairness, if we'd have switched that power unit out at the start of the sprint race, I would expect that we'd have started on pole position and won this race without a single overtake being necessary. Sergio Perez seems to think that that was a mighty drive there, as he congratulates us. And let's just hope that Las Vegas isn't the same. Having done that race in a 1v1 as well, just for fun, I did struggle there in a few sections of the circuit, probably mostly due to circuit knowledge being a little lacking, but hopefully the AI can at least live up to their level 100 expectations, or we'll have to go higher. And on to the race results for the entire weekend. Charles Leclerc managed to win overall with 26 points, followed by ourselves, Radiant Slothz in second. Sergio Perez, George Russell, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Esteban Ocon, and Lando Norris all scored points this weekend. Over to the Drivers' Championship, Max Verstappen is now just 13 points ahead of us as we somehow take P2 back from Carlos Sainz. Behind us, we have Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez, Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, Fernando Alonso, Esteban Ocon, and Lando Norris. Further down the order, we have Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly, Valtteri Bottas, Yuki Tsunoda, Lance Stroll, Oscar Piastri, Nico Hulkenberg, Joe Guanyu, Kevin Magnussen, Nick De Vries, Jack Doohan, and Logan Sargent. And finally, over to the constructors, it's Red Bull at the top, still ahead of Ferrari and Mercedes, followed by Slothz, Aston Martin, Alpine, McLaren, Alfa Romeo, Williams, AlphaTauri, and Haas. And that's all for this race. We'll catch you next time.